As is our traditional greeting on this podcast, it's been a while.
We're not doing the countdown?
Oh, right, yeah, sorry. Synchronization. Yeah. You can tell it's been a while, because I'm out of sorts. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good stuff.
Good old take. The good old times.
Should I take the intro again, or should we just leave all of that in?
Leave it all in. Why not? Leave it all in. Let people see the magic behind the microphone.
Oh, of course, yep. So yeah, lots has happened. And what was it, like February we last recorded?
February was the last time we ever spoke about anything ever.
That's true, yeah. It's been a long time. We're different men now.
We are, we've changed.
I am technically a year older since we last talked, so...
You are, you had a birthday.
I had a birthday. So, in terms of things that important that have happened in the last 2 months, there's only a couple things that really still stand out. We never talked about the Flash trailer.
We never did. I don't know what else I have to say about it. It looks quite good.
It looks annoyingly good.
Yeah, it looks quite good. I think the Michael Keaton Batman suit doesn't look like it was meant to be shown in that light.
Or doing that kind of intense action.
Yeah, well, that doesn't bother me as much, because people talk about how, like, the people in the Batman suits can never, like, move and they can't turn their neck and stuff. Whenever I ever watched any of the movies, it's never really been something that's bothered me. Like, they could start doing really flexible moves in the suit and I probably wouldn't even question it, to be honest with you. It's always like a behind the scenes fact that tickles me when they say that the suits are awful. But I think that the lighting, that suit was meant for dark, broody cinematography, and in that harsh sun, it just looks a bit stupid.
It's the same as The Dark Knight Rises, right? When you see the Nolan suit out in broad daylight and it just looks silly.
See, I don't think that suit looks silly.
I kind of think that suit always looks silly, to be honest. I think of any Batman suit, that one has aged the worst.
I think in the context of those movies, it hasn't, because I can watch those movies and think it looks timeless. But I tell you what, in Fortnite, there's a few Batman suits. Mm-hmm. And one of them is the Dark Knight suit. Mm-hmm. And it is the one that you see the least in the game, because it just doesn't really translate very well.
No.
It looks accurate too, that suit. It just doesn't look great, and like compared to the other ones that are all comic booky. Mm-hmm. But I do think in the context of the Dark Knight films, I still think that suit looks great.
Not much to say about Flash anymore. I did have a whole bit planned about the Suicide Squad game and how it looks terrible, but they've pushed it back a full year to hopefully fix that, so we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking.
They were thinking 6 years ago is when they started making it, is what they were thinking.
Yeah. Everyone's just the same. There's lots of jump mechanics. A shark doesn't really matter. The shark's just a cosmetic.
Nope, they all have guns. Okay, look, this is all side stuff, because we've got two main things to talk about this week. Or this month.
Boy, do
Star Wars and Star Trek.
Nothing has changed in that regard.
Yeah, that's our usual go-to, I suppose.
Because there's always stuff to talk about. We're in a golden age of Star Trek, Kyle. Would you believe it?
It's true. That's what Will Wheaton told me.
That's what Will Wheaton did tell us.
And he was on Star Trek, so he would know.
Didn't believe him for a few years there. Thought he was talking a lot of nonsense.
I'm not entirely convinced he isn't still talking a lot of nonsense.
He is a corporate shell.
Let's start with Star Wars, because I have a feeling we've got more to say about Star Trek as per.
Okay.
So we've had 2 Star Wars shows that have ran and finished since we last recorded.
Yep.
Plus Star Wars Celebration with a bunch of announcements.
Let's start with Celebration, eh?
Okay, so main thing, Rebel Season 5 trailer.
Rebel Season 5 trailer, yeah. Came to a big surprise to everyone.
Weirdly, Zeb wasn't in it, even though he's obviously going to be in the show.
Yeah. I mean, it was a teaser trailer.
What does teaser trailer even mean anymore?
It means no plot, all emotion.
Isn't that what trailers are normally?
No, trailers convey some of the story and give you an idea of what you're in for. I don't think teaser trailers do that, except maybe one line. And they're usually shorter than full trailers.
Okay, I guess. Sure.
For instance, another thing that they showed at Star Wars Celebration was the trailer for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yes.
I thought that trailer was horrible.
Why do you say that?
That first teaser trailer, the first one, not this one that they just showed, was wonderful. It was all John Williams theatrics, balls to the wall, emotion, head over heels. You love Indiana Jones, don't you? Don't you? I know you do. And I would say, yes, I do love Indiana Jones. I am so excited for this. This trailer is amazing. It conveys all the themes and emotions and the adventure. And then the second one, whilst longer and showing more footage and a bit more of the plot, it had an awful use of a Rolling Stones song over it.
Right.
And it was such an it wasn't mixed very well. It didn't feel like it fit the trailer at all, except that the movie's set in the 60s, I guess. Mm-hmm. And
it's very un-Indiana Jonesy.
It's not that it's just un-Indiana Jonesy, it just doesn't fit that trailer, because it felt, you know, when like you're watching something and someone else is playing something in the background, you're like, turn it off, I'm trying to watch the Indiana Jones trailer. That was me watching the Rollins. I was like, oh, this Star Wars Celebration, someone's put over the Rolling Stone. No, it's part of the trailer, Kyle. They've horribly, and it ruined the trailer for me. Like the end of the trailer kind of fades the music out and Indiana Jones starts to swell over it, which I was fine with. That was the smart choice, but the smartest choice would have been not to use the Rolling Stones song in the trailer. I love the Rolling Stones, but it was just an awful shoehorned use of them, and it really ruined that trailer for me, which the teaser trailer didn't, because that was just all about emotions and telling you how much you love Indiana Jones.
So what you're saying is this trailer for Ahsoka, it's not Rebels Season 5, it's Ahsoka, unfortunately. You're saying this teaser is fine, but the next trailer, when they play the Rolling Stones over it, is going to ruin it for you.
Exactly. 100%. If they play the Rolling Stones over the Ahsoka trailer, I
don't know how to feel about the show, frankly. Because we've said this before, the live-action Star Wars shows, at least in the Filoniverse, are no longer for casual fans. I think that's been clear since, like, Season 2 of Mando.
Yeah, there's been a big trend towards you must be a fan of the IP.
But this one's the biggest by far, with all of the Rebels cast coming back, because, like, none of that means anything to you if you've never watched Rebels.
Yeah, who's the green Twi'lek?
Yeah, and I really doubt they're going to spend that much time reintroducing them. They'll be like, this is Sabine. You know who Sabine is.
Yeah, you've seen Star Wars Rebels, the Disney Channel animated show.
You don't need to ask any questions about this droid who speaks like a grumpy old man.
And has arms and goes war.
And has little arms out of his head.
He's a war criminal.
He is a war criminal. That's why we love him.
That's true.
And David Tennant is back as that robot from that one Clone Wars arc.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I'm here for it.
I mean, he was a fun character. I'll take it. But, you know, probably my biggest concern, as always, is I still am not sold on Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. I'm still not.
I think she isn't as optimistic as Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka. Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka's, I think, had a lot more joy to the part.
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas I do think Rosario Dawson's is a bit more of a bleak Ahsoka. Which you could say is a big part of the character, and that might just snap it for you, which is fair enough. But I always keep in mind that the Ahsoka from the Clone Wars is a teenager, and the Ahsoka from Rebels is late 20s, early 30s. And this is an Ahsoka going into her 40s.
I guess.
And she's just older. She's more... There's like a matured character in the world.
Okay, that's fine when she's showing up in a cameo in other shows, but is that going to work when she's the protagonist?
I guess we'll see. I think that they are hoping that just the joy and love for the character will carry it, and Grand Admiral Thrawn will carry it. I don't know. I think you have more of a critical eye for Star Wars than I do. Which is fair. That's not a critique. Because as you had said, actually, Kel, we might come on to this, you had actually just wished that they'd made this show animated.
Yes.
And you've said that to me and you planted like a worm in my head, and I'm like, huh. Because I've been, coincidentally, listener, I've been re-watching Star Wars Rebels. And it's such a good... If you get over the art style, which you always do, about 3 episodes in, you get over the art style. And it's not awful to begin with, it's just not as good as the Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
Yeah, it's a big shift. It's like similar, but something's off. It's a bit Clone Wars Uncanny Valley like.
Yeah,
And
at first it looks way less detailed and stuff, and you're like, no, it's not. It's just a different art style.
yeah, and I think that rewatching Rebels after Kyle had mentioned, I wish they had just used animated cast for the Ahsoka show. I'm like, oh, you know what? There's something in there that you're not entirely wrong about. However, I'm open because I like seeing things in live action. I know there's a big debate about how there's no less than live action. It's just another medium to tell stories that are equally as good as live action. I understand the argument. I think it's true. But I do still enjoy seeing things in live action because it feels like it's a bigger audience, more of a budget, more people will see it, and it feels like it's elevating the material to a larger audience. If you want things to stay in their niche, that's fine. But I like to show things to people, and I understand that animation is just a big hurdle for society. So I'm willing to just see how this Ahsoka show goes, because we're getting a movie.
Yes, well, that gets onto the next of our announcements. They announced 3 movies. Who knows if any of them will actually come to fruition, but they were certainly announced. The first one, as you said, is some kind of Avenger-style Mandalorian-verse culmination film directed by Dave Filoni.
Yep, 100% is. I'm down for it.
Which, do you reckon that's a theatre release, or is that a straight to Disney Plus movie?
Oh, I think it would probably work better on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to see all those characters in a cinema. Because the thing is, it would have a lot of building to do.
You can't say that Pedro Pascal and Rosario Dawson aren't, like, movie stars, so...
Yeah, they are movie stars. I think it might have... Hold that thought. Are they movie star? Is Pedro Pascal a movie star?
Yeah, he was in Wonder Woman.
Not a highbrow. Not exactly the highest praise.
It wasn't a good movie, but he was in a big budget blockbuster movie.
He was in the second Kingsman movie as well. That was a few years ago, though. I think, if anything, Pedro Pascal now was known more for TV.
I think that's fine. True.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think that if it was a Disney Plus original, the people who it's aimed at are probably going to be more dedicated to it. I think if it's in the cinema, it will underperform because it's a Star Wars movie, and the people that see it will probably like it, hopefully, anyway. But most people will be like, what the hell is a Mandalorian? Yoda's alive again? What? Who's the ginger Boba Fett?
Okay, maybe my perspective is skewed, but I think most people who care about Star Wars at least know about The Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, but I also think most of the box office don't. I think most cinema goers, including most of the box office for any Star Wars movie, right now they probably know about Baby Yoda because it was a sensation. But they don't know the context of Baby Yoda. Because I know people like that. I work with people like that. They're like, Baby Yoda's so cute. And I'm like, oh, have you watched The Mandalorian? They're like, what? And they're like, I just know it from Twitter. I know it from GIF. I know it from the Giphy keyboard.
He drinks the soup.
He drinks the soup, yeah. He has the little macaroons. He eats frogs, doesn't he? Yeah, like that's Grogu. Not even Grogu. They don't know his name's Grogu. So I think... you've brought up a very valid point I hadn't really considered. I'd kind of just assumed it was going to go to the cinema, though I did have questions about its performance, because how would you market that? How would you build this up as like an extension of the TV property?
This is the problem. It's going to be very interesting to see in The Marvels, which is a trailer that also came out, because that film has 2 of its 3 main characters are from TV shows.
Yeah, I think that the trailers will be reasonably I think it's still going to be quite Captain Marvel heavy. And I think that trailer itself done a fairly good job of it not mattering that they're from the TV show. I think that...
I think for Monica Rambeau, it probably doesn't matter. I think for Miss Marvel, it's going to be interesting to see.
She's a kid with superpowers, and Nick Fury and Monica go to her house to be like, yo, what's happening? A couple of funny scenes with the family. The fact that there was a TV show including them probably won't matter. That's because I think Marvel do quite a good job at having the TV shows not really matter. And that seems to really offend people when I say that. I know the old Netflix Marvel and the old ABC Marvel shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I know they aren't canon. That's accepted now by most people, even though they're cherry-picking bits to reboot into canon with the same characters.
They're somewhat canon. They're nebulously canon.
Exactly. They're just like cherry-picking actors and rebooting with the same actor from the non-canon.
I kind of consider them canon until they're directly contradicted.
That's how I used to view them then. I was like, nah, we just got to cut these off. But I think whilst the Disney Plus shows are still very much canon, I think Marvel has done a tremendous job at having their existence not mean anything to the films. There are people on TikTok, the bane of my existence, that will say, oh, this is happening in this film because what happened in the TV show, and it's like, no, it's not. The film actually sets this up in the same film, and the TV show has nothing to do with it. Though, again, if you're a hardcore, you could read into the show having connections, but it's not essential that the film is related to the TV show in any sense, because the movies are the tentpole events that they want people to go to the cinema and see, and people will not go to the box office to see these movies if they think they're falling behind because of the Disney Plus shows, because they take up more time to watch. So
the thing is, though,
they will
Star
just pace
Wars is
over them.
different, right? It's less so that it's not for the casuals anymore, and more so that they haven't made a movie for like 4 years. 2019 was Rise of Skywalker.
It's still not as long as Return of the Revenge of the Sith, The Force Awakens.
Sure, yeah, but that was a different era of this kind of thing.
That's true.
And also, yeah, unlike Marvel, the Star Wars shows seem to matter a lot more.
Do they? We haven't had a film that ties them in.
Well, we're maybe going to.
Yeah, we're maybe going to. I think the shows have proven themselves to be quite known for the casual viewer of the franchise, but I just think for movies, because the money it plays is different, if people feel disenfranchised because the show's leaving them behind, I think that might not be like a storyteller's decision. A storyteller might very much want to continue their story from the show, but like studio people will be like, this is too much, Dave. You can't. Or people won't see this. The TV show's different because people can get invested in season 1, and then everything that happens in seasons 1 and 3 could have implications for the movies. But ultimately, it's like the Mandalorian as an IP under the Star Wars umbrella is self-contained. But you want to translate that into the movie? Well, good luck, you know?
Well, okay. We'll get back to the Mandalorian in a second. But 2 other movies real quick.
Yeah.
Rey's back. That's one.
Yeah, Rey's back.
Some kind of movie with Daisy Ridley where she reforms the Jedi Order.
15 years after. Sure.
Which kind of roughly lines up timeline-wise. It's fine. In terms of our real-life timeline, because the 3 sequel trilogy movies actually take place in like the span of a couple months, max.
I thought there was a year gap between 2 and 3.
Maybe. That's still not a lot, like in terms of the actual year difference in age of Daisy Ridley between films.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So yeah, I have no idea what to expect for this. I'm glad they're finally doing something in the sequel era, but you know.
Oh, see, I thought that the Mando universe shows were going to be all about rehabilitating the sequels. Like, I really thought that's what they were going to do. Like, getting into dark side cloning and all that. I think that Mando is going to have a different approach to rehabilitating the sequels than the Clone Wars did rehabilitating the sequel trilogy, for sure. But broadly, it was going to flesh out the plot points from the movies and kind of make them a little bit more interesting. And if they're going to make a sequel movie, I don't really know that. I think that probably won't really touch the sequel trilogy much. Just maybe Disciples of the Dark Side comes to mess up Rey. Apparently the Jedi Order is in disarray once again. I think I read that somewhere.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even exist yet.
Well, I think it probably does exist to a certain level. Like, what's she been doing for the past 15 years?
I mean, this is the thing. Like, when you say this as an idea, oh, Rey rebuilds the Jedi Order, I almost feel like that makes more sense to do as a book than as a movie. Like, what's the story you tell there that isn't just the same thing again?
They'll just adapt probably the EU stuff where Luke builds the Jedi Order.
Will Finn finally get a kiss?
I think I read somewhere that it was rumoured John Boyega might be coming back for it as well. Not confirmed, but rumoured.
I mean,
They'll give him the Force. They'll do the character right. They'll make him a Jedi.
Sure, yeah, they'll give John Boyega a huge pile of money.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if they do just adapt all of the novels, I guess that could be something. We'll see.
I mean, they're doing that with Heir to the Empire, the Ahsoka show.
That's true.
Ultimately, I think the Rey movie is. I think I'm so checked out. Like, you know what? We'll see. We shall see. Maybe it'll be great. I like
Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone does a bad job in the movies. I just think they're given awful material. It's not Daisy Ridley I'm not excited for. The character of Rey I'm not really excited for. I like The Force Awakens. It's just a New Hope rehash, to be fair. But it succeeds in exactly what it's trying to do. And it's not trying to trick you. And then I think she's perfectly fine in The Last Jedi. And then I think she's also perfectly fine in The Rise of Skywalker. It's just the material around her isn't very up to much. We've spoke at length about how The Last Jedi, in my opinion, ain't great. But that's not
getting into this again.
We're not getting into it again. But what I'm going to say is that it's a perfectly fine movie on its own merits. But it just didn't give the story anywhere to go. And I think The Rise of Skywalker then also suffered from trying to make episodes 8 and 9 in the one movie. And I just, like, it's just so burst. The ending of The Rise of Skywalker was just horrific. It was such a bad film, The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm like, what is Rey doing? Why do I care what Rey's doing? It felt like that was the end of the franchise, to be honest. Where's there to go? Is there any dark? It felt like everything bad in the universe was expunged at the end of that film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends. Do they finally go in a new direction, or do they just go back to, actually, the Empire has returned again? It's the Second Order.
Yeah, Imperial Remnant Warlords, because they'll think nobody has watched the Mando show, let's do it in the movies.
We'll have Admiral Kron, who's a green alien.
Oh, Christ. You know, I listen, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it until we get more information.
Okay, well, the third movie is the one that I am almost convinced will never actually get made. So, this is the one directed by the same guy who's doing the new Indiana Jones film.
Oh, James Mangold's one.
Yes, and it's like the beginning of the Jedi Order.
It's supposed to be like a biblical epic. Yeah,
like thousands of years before the movies. And, I mean, it's a cool concept. I feel like this is one of those ones that's going to end up in development hell forever, like Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron, you know? Yeah, we'll see. Well, let's talk, shall we?
Speaking of TV movies.
TV. Well, I was gonna do this where we go through all of Star Wars and then we go through the Star Trek stuff.
Okay. Keep things.
Speaking of things batched.
Oh, you done it.
Okay, Nathan.
Yeah.
I think we should just talk about both of these shows at once because for some reason they both aired both at the same time.
Okay.
Because I think we both agree The Bad Batch Season 2 was significantly better than The Mandalorian Season 3.
Yeah. It was a weird one.
Which is weird, right?
Except when the Bad Batch decided to do silly side episodes. I really have very little patience for side episodes. And I know it's animated, kids' TV, whatever.
The thing is, though, Mandalorian also had a bunch of silly side episodes.
Yeah. I like them better. But apart from that, The Bad Batch was a much better show. When it done episodes about Crosshair, who's a character in season 1, by the way, I wasn't particularly thrilled with.
If you go back to our review of The Bad Batch Season 1, we both agree that he was the most interesting character.
Well, my opinion apparently had changed in my memory, because in my memory of him is just like a
evil
little
clone.
Yeah, just evil clone. I'm just But then in this season, listen, I won't backtalk to my season 1 opinions in the review. I haven't listened to it since we've done it, but definitely in season 2 he's just the MVP without a doubt. I loved every bit of the story that they told with him.
Yeah, it's genuinely great, like, Star Wars storytelling about... Honestly, it does have kind of similar vibes to Andor, although obviously much less serious than Andor, but
Yes.
it's that exploration of fascism and how it kind of, like, affects your mind, and trying to live into the system, which obviously doesn't care about you, and kind of trying to fill yourself that it does anyway.
Yes. And then ultimately being swept aside anyway, and that's when you crack. When they come for you.
Yes.
But he was perfectly happy to sit and watch all his clone brothers get taken away.
First they came for the regs, but I did not care because I wasn't a reg.
Exactly.
Yeah, and not to discount the Bad Batch side of things as well. I think the Bad Batch stuff of, like, with Omega and stuff is watchable. It's, you know, it's entertaining. There's some ups and downs.
I hated the pod racing episode.
I like the episode where they fight a Zillo Beast.
Yeah, that was interesting, I guess. And it was really small, and then it got radiated and went really big.
I love the episode with the big ancient robot. That was a fun twist.
That was kind of neat, I guess. When I say I hate the side episodes, I hate anything with Sid. And
yes, it's really annoying, and they stay with her for way too long.
They should have ditched Sid early into season 1. She should have been in like 2 episodes of season 1. I could not be bothered with her becoming a mainstay of the show for 2 seasons. They killed Tech.
Spoilers.
They killed Tech. I just presume anyone listening to this expecting spoilers.
Sure, yeah. I admire the gusto. I hope they don't bring him back.
No, we never found a body.
God, please don't bring him back.
Just go. They're going to bring him back with a chip in his head. He's going to be evil clone.
No, okay. We have one more season, and I fully expect all of the Bad Batch except for Omega to die before the end of season 3.
Tech is Snoke.
No. Moff Gideon is Snoke.
Snoke. No. Because we had Andy Serkis already in live action. That would be too confusing.
Yeah, but when you compare all the interesting deep themes and stuff that Bad Batch Season 2 was doing to Mando Season 3, it's like, what even is this season of Mando?
Yeah. And you could argue, well, they can't do that kind of storytelling in live action, and then I point to Andor.
Yeah. Mando Season 3 is everything I hate about modern Star Wars, basically.
Go on.
Primarily that impulse to, like, undo everything that's already happened. So, like, the first episode is like, I'm going to rebuild IG-11. Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we undoing that character's sacrifice?
See, this is something that I've always kind of been a wee bit forgiving of in content where they try to resurrect someone that died. It's not like the person, when they sacrificed themselves, knew that, oh, it's fine, I'm just going to get resurrected. The sacrifice comes from the person acting with the knowledge that they're going to die with no expectation of coming back. The sacrifice is still valid. The fact that they came back is just a stroke of luck, I guess, for the person that sacrificed himself.
Well, why are we bringing back IG-11? For fan service? I don't care that much about IG-11.
It's because they can't use Jisoo Colorado anymore.
And then he goes on an adventure with the fucking droid from A New Hope. Because the universe is tiny. It's like all this stuff that just... It's all these little nitpicks I have with the Star Wars universe all condensed into one season of television.
So, IG-11 is because they can't use Cardoon anymore. R5, is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Sparky.
Sparky, yeah, whatever.
Skippy the Force Droid, that's it.
Skippy the Force Droid from Legends. Who cares that it's him? I don't care. It didn't actually matter to me. See, if it wasn't for people telling me on Twitter that it was him, I probably wouldn't even notice, to be fair. Yes, it looks broadly, vaguely similar to R5. I know it is literally R5, but had that not been pointed out to me, I probably wouldn't have noticed, to be honest. I don't care. It's just an astromech. It's not like it being the droid from A New Hope meant or changed anything. If people want to get all fan serviced about it, that's up to them to be excited about it. I didn't care particularly.
I just find it so eye-rolling. Like, there's millions of droids, and he just coincidentally gets the same one as the one that Luke Skywalker turned down. It just makes the universe feel so small to me.
Yeah, I mean, the universe is only as big as what's on the camera lens, right?
Right. And, like, all the stuff with Bo-Katan, it's like, okay, this is fine. I think the whole part where he just gives her back the Darksaber through, like, was it, like, Elder Wand logic?
It was like how the Snape actually was the owner of the Elder Wand or something.
Yeah. And generally, to me, the season, it annoyed me because it totally just undoes all of Mando's character growth from the last season. For no reason.
He likes droids now. He's accepted Grogu further into his family.
What was the point of him taking off the helmet at the end of season 2?
To say goodbye to Grogu with his own eyes, and so Grogu could see him.
Yeah, and then Grogu's just back again at the start of this season as well. That's another thing that just completely undid. Obviously, that was Boba Fett, but, like, still.
It's the same creative team.
Same creative team. Boba Fett is basically 2.5 of this show. So.
Yeah, it is just 2.5 of this show. Yes, I will admit that they have just kind of seemed to have U-turned on the end of Mando Season 2 a little bit. And I think it's maybe because they didn't know what to do. I will say, however, despite this me saying that, like, I still preferred the Bad Batch, I actually didn't dislike Mando Season 3 at all. I thought it was fine. I like how it ended. I've heard people say it's unfocused. Like, I thought the action, the cinematography and the choreography for the fight scenes, I thought they were all terrific. Mando's on jetpacks in season 1 looked a little bit silly, but I think they completely sell it now. I think it looks really good, actually. All the in-air combat on the jetpacks and the cool, neat tricks. I think the Taking Back Mandalore might have seemed a little bit straightforward, but I guess the Empire aren't doing anything with that rune. They're back on Mandalore. Like, I'm happy about it. It wasn't quite as good as the Siege of Mandalore from Clone Wars. But...
I think the show is perfectly watchable. I think it's fine. Like, it's like a solid, 7 out of 10. I just,
Andor and the Bad Batch have ruined
I think
your
I've been
palate.
spoiled by Andor. I think that's it. Because they do their Andor episodes in this season, which is so out of place.
Yeah.
Where they do a whole episode about Dr. Pershing.
Yeah. I actually quite liked that episode. But it wasn't as good as Andor.
It doesn't have the smartness and the intelligence of Andor. No. It's so blunt with what it's trying to say politically.
Yeah. It is more dumbed down, but I still liked it. I wasn't hooked and fixated like I was looking at like a hypnotic image. Like when I'm watching Andor, I'm hypnotized to the screen the entire time. Like I could probably just forget to breathe watching Andor. It's just terrific television. Andor's so good, and this isn't as good, but I can kind of just accept it. I don't know, like. I get it was still fine. I feel like Andor is a treat and not the standard. Mando's the standard.
I wish for more than the standard. The highlight of this whole season for me was Christopher Lloyd shouting about the visionary Count Dooku.
Christopher, I forgot about that. People didn't like that episode.
People hate fun. Jack Black, Lizzo, Christopher Lloyd. I mean, come on.
I liked because I didn't think Super Battle Droids were particularly athletic fellows.
No.
Seeing a Super Battle Droid book it down street corners and running away, it's quite horrifying actually if that was running towards you.
You know what too? That was one of the few sequences this season where I didn't automatically twig the volume, which I'm becoming so sick of the volume. Because, there's the scene, it was in the episode with where they come back and destroy the pirate.
Yeah.
And the entire town of I can't remember what the planet is, but it's like 30 people standing in a ditch is the entire city, because they're obviously just standing on the volume and they don't have space for more extras.
Yeah.
And stuff like that just stands out so much to me. I
think I noticed the volume a lot in the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah.
And I got really sick of it.
There's some really egregious examples in the Obi-Wan show.
I don't actually think I noticed it that much in Mando season. I noticed it a few times, anytime they were on the surface of Mandalore, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually don't think it was that bad this season. There was a couple of moments where I noticed it, and I am also sick of this. The Obi-Wan show really made me sick of the volume, but I think they used it better in this season. I was less attuned to it. Andor done it right. Andor just done on-set location filming and old-fashioned green screen.
Imagine that.
Considering everyone hated blue screen for the sequel trilogy, it's nice to see it back.
Mm-hmm. It's because we've learned how to use it better in the last 20 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
And the CGI just looks more real now.
Yeah. Oh, Mando was so good. Andor was so good. I cannot wait for Andor season 2.
I hope it's still good. I really hope they don't mess it up.
I don't think they will. It's the same creative team.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't have much to say. Like, how on earth did we fill 2 hours talking about Mando Season 2? We had a full podcast on Mando Season 2, and this season it's just whatever.
Yeah, that does speak volumes in itself, I guess. No pun intended.
To be fair, a lot of it was arguing about the end of Mando Season 2, but, that's something.
That's something. This show had nothing to argue about.
Like, I know they were saying, there's going to be a big sacrifice at the end, which turned out to be the Darksaber. And when they destroyed the Darksaber, I was just like, good. It's gone now.
I forgot they destroyed the Darksaber.
It's such an inconsequential thing. Like, this show did nothing with the Darksaber, so who cares?
They're going to bring it back.
Of course they are. That's the thing too, is start of next season, the armor will be like, I have rebuilt the Darksaber for you. Yep,
exactly. Though I think that didn't matter. Like, to me, I don't care. I think it was quite stupid they destroyed it in the first place. Yeah, but I also didn't really care when they destroyed it, but I also won't care when they bring it back.
No, the show, it's so inconsequential to the show. They barely use it.
Yeah, they don't really use it much. It feels quite out of place, doesn't it? If they were good, it feels like technically Bo-Katan having it is the perfect place in the universe for it to be, but it's just kind of, they don't do much. I don't think they know what to do with it in live action. They can't, because none of them are Force users.
I mean, they can still use a lightsaber. It's a useful weapon.
Yeah, but like, you get into a lot about how the Darksaber is really heavy if you're not into tune with it, and it lightens up the more you kind of make it one with you. They don't talk about any of that in this show. Except Mando finds it a bit heavy sometimes.
Yeah, and then Bo-Katan can use it with perfect heat and just never does. Just never uses it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even that, like, there was a whole thing in the Book of Boba Fett where the armor is like, you have to learn how to use this weapon, and then the resolution to that in this season is, he just doesn't learn to use it and just gives it to someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of didn't want him to have it anyway. I always wanted Bo-Katan to get it. What's heavier, Kyle? Mm-hmm. The Darksaber or Captain Worf's sword?
Let's talk about Star Trek.
Let's talk about Star Trek, yeah.
Shall we start with the news, or shall we start with Picard Season 3?
Let's start with the news.
Okay. A couple different ones. They announced the Star Trek Academy show is finally being made after, 30 years of trying to get it to be made?
After 30 or 40 years of Star Trek The Academy, Starfleet show, something being talked about, finally doing it.
Okay, sure.
Do we care?
I mean, if it's good, I'll care. It's not a concept I'm in love with.
I've never really cared about a Starfleet Academy show. It's never... Because it's going to be for, It's going to be for, tweens. If Prodigy is for kids, Academy show will be for, Disney Channel age people. And then you migrate them out of that and into, discovering Strange New Worlds. And then for old people, you put them to Picard Season 3. They never made the Season 1 or 2. They just called it Picard Season 3. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's weird that it's called Picard too, because he's in it, but he's not really it's more about the crew,
Yeah, it's more of an ensemble.
Yeah,
it's like Star Trek. It's more like TNG Season 8. But let's stay on the news. News.
We got a trailer for Strange New Worlds Season 2. We didn't really talk much about Strange New Worlds because I hadn't watched it all at the time.
You were quite delayed in watching it.
I've since watched all. I quite liked it. I think the trailer for Season 2 looks like more of the same, with a couple things that I may be worried about, but overall I think it'll be fine. That's
pretty much where I come down on it too, except to say that I think Picard Season 3 has ruined me. And I'm not satisfied anymore. I'll give you an example, right? I had been unsatisfied with the Call of Duty franchise for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then Call of Duty World War II came out in 2017. And
Right.
I quite liked it. It wasn't all this hyper future space combat. It was more boots on the ground, first person shooter action, set in World War II to Call of Duty's roots. That's ideal, right? And I quite liked it at the time. I thought it was a bit empty. It was just a bit but it was the best game in years. And that was whatever. And then we moved on to a couple more shit games, and then we got to Call of Duty 2019, the Modern Warfare remake, and that was like a return to form for Call of Duty. That was fantastic. That was amazing. That was great first-person action Call of Duty game, right? And to look back on World War II 2017, I'm like, that game was awful as well. Why did I accept it? Was it just because it was like the best at the time and like a sea of awful, and it was slightly better? And that's how I'm kind of wondering if I think about Strange New Worlds. I'm going to alleviate some concern. I have been rewatching Strange New Worlds with my parents. Yeah.
And there's some times where the dialogue is a bit like, there's some humor stuff that doesn't really work, but I think there is some really solid Star Trek episodes of Strange New Worlds.
Right, because I haven't rewatched it.
I think it's the 6th episode, Lift Me Where Suffering Cannot Reach.
Yeah.
It's the child sacrifice episodes.
Yeah.
Still really solid. That's a classic Star Trek episode.
Classic Star Trek episode. You also probably like it because the sets are well lit.
Yes, they are.
You can see what's happening.
They're nice and bright. Everyone's wearing big, colourful outfits.
Good old Star Trek. I always remember in Discovery Season 2 where they just hued the Enterprise bridge of blue to fit with Discovery, and then they've just made it all orange now.
Yep. And look, Christopher Pike, he's so charming.
Yeah, how could you hate Anson Mount?
I mean, if you watch Inhumans, that's how. But you know.
No, we love him in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yep. So yeah, I the main thing that worries me is Kirk is featured prominently in the trailer, and there's kind of a weird cringy joke about revolving doors.
Yeah, that was a really cringy. It looked like a time travel episode.
It looked like an outtake.
Yeah. Why is Kirk in this show?
I don't know. I think he worked quite well in the finale, but I don't think we needed to see him back so soon.
No, I was fine with that being it.
Yeah, I think that was a good way of tying it.
Maybe if you need to, you end the show with giving the Enterprise to Kirk. But apart from that, I was perfectly fine with never seeing Captain Kirk in the show. I'm fed up. Seeing unless Captain Kirk is played by Bill Shatner or Chris Pine, I'm kind of fed up with the character. Because I actually, now, for all the flaws of the J.J. Abrams movies, is rompy Hollywood blockbusters, I'm kind of fine with them, and I actually don't mind Star Trek 09 or Star Trek Beyond. I think they're fine. But I don't need Captain Kirk showing up all the time. I don't care about him. And then they also put him as like a weird sex pest flirt in this show as well, which they kind of characterise him as in the JJ movies as well, which I'm not a fan of. And I just, I don't...
Yeah, it's the pop culture idea of Kirk as opposed to actual Kirk in reality.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think this guy does a particularly good job as Kirk either.
No, he's...
The same way as I don't think Zachary Quinto does a very good Spock, even if maybe he kind of grew into it a little bit in Season 1 of Strange New Worlds. In the trailer, there's an awful line where it's like, what do you say as the captain? He's like, I want the ship to go. That is perfectly Strange New Worlds humour. Like, it fits the show. But it's also to concede that Ethan Peck, is not playing a very good Spock. I don't enjoy his Spock at all. He's just a Vulcan. It's like how I wasn't a fan of What's His Face's Han Solo in the Solo movie. Perfectly serviceable movie that I enjoyed, but Han Solo was not in the film. Again, I liked the film. Film was quite good. I just did not buy him at any point in the film as Han Solo. He was just some smuggler.
That is probably my biggest problem with Strange New Worlds, is I just wish it was a new show and it didn't have all this baggage it has to carry.
No Uhura, no Spock. Or if you're going to do
Nurse
Spock...
Chapel.
No, I quite like Nurse Chapel. There's nothing to Nurse Chapel in TOS. Why not?
Well, yeah. It's just baggage, right? And I guess Dr. Mbenga is technically from like one episode of TOS as well.
And the Cage.
Yeah.
I think.
No, the Cage is the Doctor, some old dude. I think it's just from like one of those old episodes where they don't have quite the cast filled out yet.
Yeah. He shows up when they don't have McCoy. Yeah.
Yeah.
When's McCoy showing up? That's going to happen. They're going to slowly bring in every character. And then,
absolutely. We're going to get Sulu. We're going to get Chekhov.
Yeah, and then like by the end of it, it's like, your guys are in charge now. I'm off, says Pike and his team. And they leave.
I'm out. Bye-bye.
The last episode is just Charlie X or something.
I think it'd be very funny if they kill off an engineer every season until they get to Scotty.
Hilarious. That would be so funny. But how long is this show going to last? Because, Kyle, as we now know, Star Trek Discovery is coming to a close.
5 seasons is pretty good.
5 seasons is more than Enterprise got.
It's more than Enterprise.
Yeah.
It's less overall episodes, I think, than Enterprise, but more seasons.
More seasons, so that matters. Kyle, what's your... I know we haven't had season 5 yet, and I still have yet to watch season 4, which is wild. Why am I not... I'm watching Star Wars Rebels for the 5th time instead of watching Discovery season 4. Like, it's so embarrassing for me to do a podcast talking about Star Trek when I haven't seen the latest season of a Star Trek show. But I just, like, season 3 was probably the best that Discovery had to offer, but I still was just kind of like, okay, that's an improvement.
Season 4 is easily the best season of Discovery.
Okay. I need to watch it.
Season 3 is okay and then falls completely flat at the end when it just becomes action nonsense.
Yeah.
Season 4 does actually come together cohesively quite well, and it has like a proper through line of a theme. It's about grief. It's like, and it's not like they say like all the modern Marvel shows are about grief when they're not. They just have people being sad. It's like actually about grief and has something to say about it. Okay,
it actually has it has a thing to do.
Yeah.
And did they do Star Trek-y stuff? Were they on the ship and they're being the crew of a Starship Enterprise, or
yes, they do Star Trek-y stuff.
Okay, they're not just being weirdos that fly around in a spaceship.
And Burnham finally coalesces into a character that actually makes sense for the first time in 4 seasons.
She's not Spock's sister anymore. She's Captain Michael Burnham of the Starship Discovery.
Well, the problem with Burnham is she's a different character every single season.
Really? I thought in season 3 and 4 she would just be the same, because when they go to the future I would have thought, right, that's the show going to stabilise now.
She's more similar. She does kind of... She fills into the role of captain, basically, and becomes slightly more mature.
Good. Because I've only seen the first episode of Discovery, and that had me scared. I don't like the first episode of Discovery. I think I watched the first 3 episodes of Discovery. Sorry.
No, it starts with the planet exploding, and that's a bad sign.
I watched the first 3 episodes of Discovery Season 4, and I just stopped. And I think, the first episode stuck in my mind, and I was like, that's worrying. Like, they worship cats and stuff, you've cats on board. And I, like, what's a cat, That was awful. They're running away from these weird flower people. But if you're telling me it's good, I will watch it. I have Paramount Plus now. That's such a thing that is now launched in the UK. That wasn't a thing when Discovery Season 4 first aired. I had to use Pluto TV because it wasn't going onto Netflix. Remember that fiasco?
Mm.
Oh, Christ, that was awful. That might also be partly the reason why I didn't watch it at the time, because it was just not a thing that was convenient to watch.
Well, back to Strange New World. It's already been confirmed for Season 3. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up going for around 5 seasons as well.
Yeah, do you think so?
Well, they might actually fully commit to the 5-year mission thing and do 5 seasons.
Yeah, true. That would be nice. You know what I would love? If when they introduce McCoy, it's just Karl Urban. I would love that.
That would be a bold choice.
I would love it. I would absolutely unapologetically love it. I think he's a fantastic McCoy. I think all of the movie cast do a good job in their roles.
They do good in their roles. Their roles are very different from their... Like, Uhura is totally different in the movies than in the show.
Uhura's different than she is in the show, but I think the rest of them are fairly the same. I think Anton Yelchin's Chekhov was a little bit too naive, but I guess kind of Pavel Chekhov from Walter Koenig's perspective was always a little bit kind of young.
Sulu, I remember being more of like an action hero type than he is in the show.
He bounds around shirtless with a sword.
Sure, that is a thing that happens. Yes.
So what are you excited for the Stranger World Season 2?
I'm optimistic. Let's put it that way.
Okay, you're optimistic, and you're optimistic.
We didn't even talk about the Klingons.
Oh, the
Klingons look normal again.
The Klingons look. You're much better at remembering this trail than I am. I have seen it, listener. Believe it or not, I have actually watched it. Yeah, the Klingons are back and they look normal. You see a D7 battlecruiser that actually looks worse than it did in Discovery Season 2.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, It's weird in Discovery Season 2 when they showed the ships, they were like, okay, let's give these fanboys, these losers, some accurate Klingon stuff. And we're like, right, okay, fantastic. And a D7 battlecruiser shows up. I don't think it was fully made sense in the lore for it to be there, but maybe it did, whatever. And then you see one in the Stranger Worlds trailer, and it's the same skeleton, but it just looks different. It looks more detailed in a bad way. Maybe it's not a D7 though. It could just have the vague shape of a Klingon ship.
It's Klingon style.
Yeah, it's Klingon style. But the Klingon warrior showed up, and he looked more slightly less intimidating, but he also
like an actual Klingon.
Yeah, he looked a little bit more fake, I would say.
I would say that too. Like, I was thinking about comparing him to Worf, and he looks a bit more like plasticky or something.
Yeah, he looks a bit more Play-Doh-y than Worf does, doesn't he? But I like it. I prefer it.
I think that's just the style of Strange New Worlds, which I'm fine with. Strange New Worlds is a bit more like
a throwback. So someone on Twitter had compared the Discovery Klingons to the Strange New World Klingons, and they had commented that they actually, if you put hair on the Discovery Klingons and maybe humanise the face slightly more, they don't look too different.
Well, that's what they did in Season 2.
Like on the ridges, I mean. Like on the ridges. And I was like, I don't really know really what you're talking about, because specifically of Season 2. Season 2, they just put hair on the Disco Season 1 Klingons, and, you know, they
look better,
but they still look like weird reptiles.
And they have, like, the 4 nostrils going on for some reason.
Which is now just all gone. Discovery Season 1 is such an oddity. It was like an entire... Did they think that nobody watched Star Trek anymore when they brought that back?
I think so, yeah.
Like, when that happened, they must have had no plans to make a Star Trek Picard. They must have had... Because people asked Alex Kurtzman, like, if Worf showed up, would they look at Discovery Klingon? And they're like, of course he wouldn't. Then why have you done that then? Why have you changed them to look so different and given them 4 nostrils? And, like, the ships look so bland, and it's just all very generic science fiction.
I was going to say, the problem isn't that they changed it, because obviously the current Klingon design is a change, right? They used to just be brown people with, like, Fu Manchu mustaches.
Yes,
But, like, the problem is the changes are bad. They look bad.
Oh, they just, like...
They look like big space orcs or something.
Yeah, which I think the prosthetics is quite an achievement. Like, it must have not been easy to make.
No, I mean, like, visually, like, design-wise, they look fine. It's just, like, it's not a good design, and all their armour is this weird, like, bone and stuff.
For a Klingon, it looks horrific. Maybe for, like, a space Lord of the Rings, it would be better.
Yeah.
Remember when they said this was going to be like Game of Thrones in space? Remember that?
I do remember that.
You know what's strange, though? I actually think... I kind of have weird fond memories for Season 1.
It was doing its own thing.
It was doing its own thing, and if you disconnect it from Star Trek, which you shouldn't do, that's already a failure. I'm like, I miss Lorca. I really enjoyed Gabriel Lorca. He was the best character. I want to see a Prime Lorca show.
Well, maybe he'll show up in the Section 31 movie, Nathan.
Oh, there's a segue I didn't want you to make.
It's back. It's real. It's happening.
They've rejigged their stupid Section 31 show into a stupid Section 31 TV movie.
It's interesting that they've gone with TV movie. It's not like Michelle Yeoh couldn't crowd theatres. Michelle Yeoh's in everything.
Yeah. But I think her leading a Star Trek vehicle probably would surprise just a lot of people. And I think they don't want to write off the JJ films. I think there's a lot of like movie brand contamination that they're not sure what to do with at the minute. And I think also maybe they aren't willing to commit to the budget for a Star Trek movie because maybe they're saving up to continue the Chris Pine adventures.
Maybe.
And it would be set in a different timeline from the Chris Pine movies. I think it would honestly confuse a lot of people. And they said it was a TV event movie. It's an event, Kyle.
Sure, okay. I think this is a terrible idea. I've always thought it was a terrible idea. I hate evil Empress Georgiou. She's a bad character I don't like. It's all just bad. I don't like Section 31.
Enterprise was the last time they used them well.
They're barely in Enterprise. They're in like 2 episodes of Enterprise.
Yeah. Now they're in quite a bit of season 4.
And they're wearing the same uniform as the 24th century. Which
I'm fine with
I'm
fine with that. I'm fine with that. Because yes, fine. They're supposed to be an allegory for the CIA. Whatever. Like, I understand an allegory for a thing, but you also are creating an in-universe continuity for a thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to suddenly have them have these stupid Section 31 fleets and uniforms and special comm badges, I understand CIA allegory, right? But if your allegory goes on to break the continuity of the universe you've built up, then why do I care about the story you're telling? If you're like, there's no stakes if you're just going to retcon it. Some retcons
Also,
are good,
like,
which we'll get to, but not Section 31. They're just too bad.
Okay, I've made a whole video about this already, so I'm not going to reiterate my arguments.
Yeah.
But, like, the clear, obvious point of Section 31 originally was that they were bad.
Yeah.
And in Discovery and all these other ones, they're like, oh, but sometimes it's necessary to do the evil, and it just, like, it totally devalues the entire idea of Starfleet. In my opinion.
Yes. But I think also the people that are in charge of Star Trek would agree that the CIA Black Ops stuff is bad, but then in Discovery they just seem to paint it as like a good thing.
They don't paint it as a good thing, they paint it as a necessary thing. Like, that's the argument that Sloan makes in Deep Space Nine, is he says, oh, this Section 31 is necessary, that's how all this good stuff can happen, is because we're doing bad shady stuff in the background.
Yes.
But, like, DS9 also disproves him. Or at least they try to.
Yes, Discovery makes no such effort.
And yeah, and Empress Sharjeel, like, she gets better in season 3, I guess. But her whole character is just that personified, where she does the bad things that all the rest of the crew aren't willing to do.
You know what? See if the Section 31 movie, it just starts with her doing horrible things, and then Q snaps his fingers, and she just turns back into Prime Giorgio again. I'm fine with that. I don't have much to say about Section 30, because you've done a video on Section 31 anyway, and we have long since said that there's no way that show is ever going to happen. And then, you know, but we're right, that show is never happening. They've just adapted it. It was the same when they announced, remember they announced they were making the Walking Dead movies? They were bringing back Rick Grimes, Andrew Lincoln. I know you don't watch The Walking Dead, but I think we've spoke about it at some point. I had said at the point of that announcement they're never making those movies. I just said it. I just declared that movies will never see the light of day. And I was right. A few years later, they then morphed them into a miniseries, and they've still never come out. But I think they actually are making them, or have made them. I can't remember. And it's the same with that Section 31 show. It was such a stupid idea, and they morphed it into a TV movie because she won the Oscar.
Okay, at this point we know nothing about this movie. What are they going to do with this movie? Are they going to bring back Ash Tyler?
Oh, probably.
Because, like, okay, last time we saw Empress Sharjeel, she went through the portal at the edge of forever, or whatever.
Yeah. Back
in time, because she was falling apart because the dimensions were too far apart.
And she spent some time in the mirror universe again.
Well, it was like a hallucination of the mirror universe or something to prove that she had a redemption arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then she went back through the portal, and he said she was going to send him back to a little bit closer in time, which doesn't necessarily mean back to Discovery era. It could be back to Picard era.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's possible.
They're just going to warp Philippa Giorgio into the 25th so she can fight 7 of 9. Oh, no. Oh, that's why they haven't greenlit Star Trek Legacy, Kyle, because that crew is going to be in the Section 31 movie against Giorgio.
Oh, God.
No. That's it. That's it. We've decided.
No, but, like, they want... No. Giorgio's going to be the good guy hero who does the bad things that are necessary. That's her deal. She's not going to be a bad guy.
That's a shame. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't care. I so supremely don't care. I think it's stupid. I'm gonna watch it. Of course I'm gonna watch it. people, the people that defend everything that Star Trek ever puts out, if they ever hear this, will be like, well, if you're not going to like it, why are you going to watch it? Or they'll just call me a hater because I'm writing it off before ever seeing it. But I think that I can say that the concept sounds stupid and then have an informed opinion on it when it's out. And again, we'll get onto Picard in a minute, but I was excited for Picard because people I had seen online were excited for it, and that was seemingly correct. Kyle had written off Picard because of the track record of the content and was proven wrong. After he had an informed opinion on it, though, he acknowledged that he was wrong.
I'm willing to admit defeat. I'm not going to die on the hill that Picard Season 3 is bad, because it's not. It rules.
Yeah. So, if the Section 31 movie comes out and it's perfectly nice, I will eat my hat. But I doubt it.
Alright, Nathan, it's time.
No, it's time. Here we go. Yeah, this is going to be one of the longer podcasts.
Let's escape from Section 31. Let's run away. Let's go back to simpler, brighter Let's go back to simpler, brighter futures.
Okay.
Picard Season 3. It was so good, wasn't it?
Wonderful. Remember in the last episode, you asked me if I was excited for it, and you just wanted to just dot that. You wanted to just put a pin in it, and we would revisit that in case
I concede to you. You were right.
I was right. I was so right. Based on a show I'd never seen, but just word I'd heard. The words coming out of the internet was that it was really, really good.
Now, look, before we get too far, I do have problems with it. I don't think it's perfect. I think there's definitely some issues that we can talk about.
Yep.
But overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yes. I think I may have enjoyed it a bit more than you, but also I would agree that it was not perfect.
And yeah, obviously nothing's perfect, but comparing it to the last 5 years of Star Trek, it's such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. I mean, it was truly a return to form. It was like a proper TNG motion picture feature film.
That is arguably, or even unarguably, better than all of the TNG films.
I tell you what, the Enterprise, we're going to spoilers, the Enterprise D in this didn't look as nice as the D did in Generations.
Sure, and they had less sets.
Oh yeah, but I mean the exterior shots of it in space. I felt like on this TV budget, I could see them faking 3D in a 2D plane. Whereas the actual model work in Generations felt like a tangible ship in space.
I miss models. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I miss space models, but we're never going back to the era of models.
If I get a big budget science fiction pick, you bet I'm using models.
I don't know why they don't use models. It generally looks better.
And it's usually a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
It's not as fast though. It takes longer.
Yeah, I guess that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes longer.
Overall, though, I think this show looks fantastic CGI-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
It's mostly noticeable on the Enterprise because we're used to seeing it as a model, but for all the new ships, it's seamless.
Yeah, the Titan looks amazing. Mm-hmm. The Titan actually looks like a Federation starship.
I'm going to say this, by the way, also. It's not really relevant. I love the design of the Titan. It's one of my new favourite starship designs. I just think it looks so sleek.
The Neo-Constitution.
The Neo-Constitution class. I
Third
love the look of
Constitution
it.
class we've ever had, yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, terrific. You're not wrong at all. It's absolutely an amazing ship. I think that the ship looked better at the start. And that's not because of the combat. I think when we saw it up with other ships later in the show, it felt so dinky.
I think that could have added to it though.
Yeah,
it's they're on this smaller ship against all of Starfleet. Okay, should we give a plot summary? We usually don't anymore, but
let's do a plot summary. You do it. I trust you. You're the one that's better at scripting this.
Okay. Well, for the first 4 episodes, it's basically Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this sort of story about conspiracy, with changelings have infiltrated Starfleet, and then third act twist, it's the Borg.
Yeah, third act twist, it's the Borg. Which I guess in the context of this season as a season of television, unbeholding to seasons 1 and 2, it's technically fine, I guess.
Yeah, and like logically, it all adds up. There's no like glaring plot holes.
Yeah, like they actually, I mean, like at the start, they're like, why did that changeling pose as a transporter technician? The first one, it makes sense.
Yeah, and rewatching it, I was like, this lines up quite a bit with like
they've clearly planted the seeds early.
Yeah, like Jack's visions. He sees like all the blood veins when they go through the transport, and it's like, that's because they're being Borg programmed.
Yes, it's like,
and he can control the younger crew, but he can't read the minds of Crusher and Picard because they don't have the brain things. Like, it lines up and it makes sense.
You would never guess that it was the Borg. It really was a twist.
Yeah, Jack Crusher is Picard's son. That's the other major part of the show.
Yeah, of course, naturally. Yes, how could we forget?
And he's actually, despite that description, he's a pretty good character. I like him.
Yeah, I like Jack Crusher as well.
I think he's quite charming.
Ed Spears.
Ed Spielers?
Spielers, yeah. He does a very good job with the whole thing.
And yeah, and the whole crew of TNG is back, minus some of the other characters, but well, we didn't get O'Brien back, which is fine because he became more of a DS9 character. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, we can't count on, like, people were starting to kind of bend over and we're like, including me a little bit, where it's like, oh, we'll go to the wormhole, we'll see DS9 and stuff because it was all changelings. But looking back on it, it's clearly obvious that wouldn't have been the right thing to do because it's a show technically about Picard and it's a TNG revival. It's not a Deep Space Nine revival. I
think all of the characters they brought back made sense for them to bring back.
Yes. I would agree.
Like, they brought back Roll Iron, which was such a pull, but I think it worked for that episode and it worked to raise the stakes.
I think that is my favourite episode of the season.
I think I'm between that and 4.
Just
either or.
Something about it that I thought was brilliant. I just the discussion between Roll Iron and Admiral Picard in the holodeck, terrific stuff. They done really, this whole season done really good sit and talk scenes.
Yes, there's a lot of really good emotional scenes. There's also the scene between Picard and Crusher Senior. Yes. When they're talking about why she didn't tell him he had a son, and it's like a really proper, impactful conversation. Yes,
they actually sit and discuss things.
Well, I mean, they get heated, they argue, but
that's not what I mean. But I mean, like, they're talking about a real relatable matter where they both have valid points. Neither of them are wrong.
Yeah, and they don't talk in poetic nonsense.
There's no butterflies of space.
There's no space butterflies.
The discussion is, why didn't you tell me I had a son? I was protecting him. You are a very highly sought after figure to be killed. You were a danger. Mm-hmm. I was protecting her son, and he's like, it was my decision to know if I should be a father or not. Like, just good grounded talk. The fact that it was like Andor, where like Andor's a very good story incidentally set in the Star Wars world, where that was a great discussion just coincidentally set in the Star Trek world. It was like a real discussion about a real thing.
Yeah. Why don't we just start going through things that we liked?
Everything.
Okay, there's some things
sorry, can I interject? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The whole leaving space dock sequence.
It's perfect.
Perfect. So wonderful. The music I can tell you the amount of times I've listened to the soundtrack of this season. It's proper Star Trek music. Like, it sounds like it's from the motion picture era of the films. It sounds still like it's from the show as well. The horns, the theatrics of the whole thing, the orchestra. I always think that they do it. The Star Trek music kind of vaguely reminds me of the Jaws music.
Mm-hmm.
And like when they do like the underwater sequences in Jaws, it sounds sort of like otherworldly, unknown, what's beneath the depths. That's what the space music is like in Star Trek as well, because it's supposed to evoke the same emotion. By the way, did you know the composer of Season 3 of Picard is the same composer that does Apex Legends?
That's funny.
That's quite funny. I went to his Spotify and his top music is all Apex Legends stuff. And she's a video game composer, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Stephen Barton, his name is. And it's the launching from Space Dock it's like a big event. The ship's moving out. It's adventure. It's adventurous. They're not just launching and going like a fighter ship. It's like a proper.
Oh, it's slow, and you get the panning shots of the Titan.
Oh, wonderful! I like the little ridges on the side of the saucer section that looked like the refit Constitution from the movies. I love the deflector. I love the secondary hull. I liked the nacelles. They looked like Starfleet. I liked the bridge. There was no window. I was never like the biggest hater of the window. I've said shit against it in the past because I do think the window's a bit silly. But it looked like a starship.
Yes.
It was terrific.
They could do with turning the lights up a bit, but other than that, it looks great.
Yes. But clearly that must have now been a deliberate decision from what we saw with the Galaxy class.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is the same bridge as the Stargazer, right?
Yes, I watched a bit of Season 2 after Season 3 had debuted, just because I had to remind myself that there was some Starfleet stuff in the previous seasons. Remember when they used to have the uniform pips like on their chest piece, and then they moved it up to the neck again? In Season 2 they'd done that, but in Season 1 the ranks were like on the chest. It was like Star Trek Enterprise's chest piece ranks.
I do, yes.
Yeah, and then in Season 2 they moved them up. So in terms of Starfleet, I think it's probably the same as it was in Season 2. There was just no Starfleet stuff in Season 2, because the Stargazer set is just a bit of a redress, and the Titan set is a redress.
It's the same uniforms as Season 2 as well.
Yeah, it's the same uniforms. It's a set redress from the Stargazer's bridge, though I think they've used it much more effectively here. There's not a lot of sets in this show, but they used them all so well.
Yeah, and they've clearly built sets.
Yeah, the La Sirena was in the show for 2 seconds. Apparently they had to strip it down though to build Vadic's ship set.
Interesting.
That's why the La Sirena kind of just disappears.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well. Captain Shaw.
Love him.
Love him.
He's great in the first 4 episodes. He's less used in the rest of the show, but he's still great.
Yeah, when Picard and Riker are no longer just weirdo hijackers, and they are accepted as being correct and having authority over the situation, he isn't an antagonist to them anymore, because he's the only person that could stand up to them. So he has nothing to do except agree with them and be a hype man, and thus fades into the back, because you don't want to see them having to delegate through Shaw for everything. You want to see Picard and Riker make the decisions. So yeah,
those first 4 episodes though, awesome.
Terrific. I also loved them in episode 5.
Yep.
Just chipper. I love it. That's stuck in my head for every week of this show. I'm just a little bit happy.
He's this perfect. He is what's the character's name? Jellicle. He's a Jellicle figure, right?
Yeah, he has a Jellicle figure.
He's a righteous hard ass. He's by the books, but he's Starfleet to the bone.
He's a little bit more flawed than Jellicle, though.
Yeah, sure.
Jellicle was I think Jellicle was like a Republican. And that's not to say that Republicans are correct, but I mean, like, he's a fairly sort of like put together, doesn't have any
wear your goddamn uniform,
shine your shoes, you know, like, you suppress all your issues, you just on the sheen, everything's perfect, you know. Whereas Shaw's a bit of a mess. He's more open about his mental health.
Sure.
He's a bit more of a tragic figure. He's more of a healthy person, you could say. I think Jellicle might be a little bit more of an unhealthy figure.
Jellicole's the guy who doesn't go to therapy.
Yeah, Jellicle doesn't go to therapy. I think Shaw probably does. But I loved it. Loved Shaw terrifically. He'll be sorely missed in this franchise.
If they don't bring him back, which they might, because he was a fan favourite.
He was a fan favourite. I don't think they knew what they had.
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually wonder, there's the scene at the very end where there's like a little note from Shaw.
Yes.
I was kind of wondering if they filmed that later when they realised that he was such a success. I think probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think so. I think this show was all very well planned out. I don't think they've changed a thing.
That is what comes across, and that's what sets it apart from not just other Star Trek shows, but just other shows in general, is this show feels so planned out.
Yes. Which is so weird, because they made this on the heels of Season 2, and Terry Metalis was involved in Season 2.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's so, it's just like the same, I don't even think it's the same creative team, or maybe it is, but how you can just rearrange the same figures on a chessboard and it just completely changes everything.
Yeah, because Season 2 was structurally a total mess.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest problem with it is like the the plot just completely meanders for 10 episodes.
I think it was a bit like the Book of Boba Fett, where they got halfway through making it before realised they just wanted to make Mando Season 3. And it was like they got halfway through Picard Season 2 before realising what they actually wanted to do. Because I see Picard Season 3 as a bit of a slight continuation to Season 1. It has nothing to do with Season 2.
It's season... The only thing you need to know with Season 2 is, like, what happened to Rios. That's literally it.
Does Rios even get mentioned in Season 3?
No, he doesn't. That's the only... It's like, why there's this guy Rios in Season 1. I guess he's just not in this season. Why does Raffi have his ship?
Yeah, exactly.
And I like Rios, by the way. He was the highlight of those 2 seasons.
I liked Rios as well.
I would have much rather had Rios this season than Raffi.
Yeah, so would have I. But he'd less of a relationship with Seven, I guess. I don't even mean romantic, I mean just anything. I think that I loved him as captain of the Stargazer. Like, I think he was actually quite a good Starfleet captain.
Yeah, he was sat there with his cigar.
Don't understand why smoking in the bridge is allowed.
It was an unlit cigar, I think.
It was an unlit cigar. Yeah, it definitely was. I think he just holds it as like a prop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel like he filled out the uniform very well, though. I don't know, something about it. He felt like he was a good captain, but I think he looked a bit silly in the uniform.
He was a bit unkempt.
Yeah, he was a bit unkempt, exactly. Not the issue with Shaw. I love that dinner scene with Shaw.
It's great.
Yeah, he's more of a Malbec man. Chateau Picard is the shittest wine in the quadrant, apparently.
I love the running joke that no one likes Picard's wine. That's great. It's so funny.
Oh, your sour mead, sir.
Even Geordie's like, you said it was bad because you're a man of no taste.
Yeah, that's why he wasn't a changeling, because he hated the wine.
I think it's somewhat intentional. I think there's a lot of like little digs at the first 2 seasons in this season, which I approve of.
Yes. Like,
there's the whole scene where Riker and Troy talk about how much they hate their house from the first season.
Yes. Though I did enjoy the scene where apparently the changeling showed up and Diana joked that he was good in bed but bad at pizza.
Honestly, the chemistry between Troy and Riker in this season is maybe the best it's ever been.
Yes, definitely. I actually bought their marriage for once.
Yes. They actually feel like they've been married a long time and they actually seem like a real couple. I love the scene where she says that Zaddy is a bad word and you should stop saying it.
It was that I wish I taught you another word. I quite like that word, to be honest, but I think she's just fed up of hearing it.
Yes, all of the crew feel right. They feel like themselves, which is unlike seasons 1 and 2, where Picard just was this sort of like old man who was very wise and very like poetic and whimsical.
Yeah, a bit lost. Everything else happens around him. He just sort of advises.
And in this season, he feels like Picard again.
He feels like Starfleet Admiral Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, he feels older.
Yeah, that's fine.
All of them do in ways that make sense. Like Riker feels kind of older and he feels more captain-y.
Jonathan Frakes was so good.
Oh, he killed it.
He'd said that he was intimidated when he was told that there was going to be lots of Riker in it. He was intimidated because he's more of a director these days. He doesn't really do the acting very much. But honestly, he
got it.
He still got it. He was fan. Like, I went back and rewatched the season 1 stuff, and it did kind of feel like Jonathan Frakes doing like an SNL skit.
Oh yeah, their whole episode in that season is so bizarre.
Even when he shows up at the end on the starship bridge of the Discovery.
He looks so weird. He's got like the messed up hair and like
he looks like
a crazy person.
He looks like a crazy person put on a Starfleet uniform and somehow got control of a fleet. But then now he looks like Riker. He looks like Captain Riker.
It's great, and he has like the 2 modes that he switches in between, because he's got like, I'm just being friendly Riker, and then as soon as he's in command of the Titan, he's like, I'm in command Riker mode now.
Yes.
And it's all business.
All business, and it doesn't let up, and it's so good. Him and Picard have proper like discussions and conflict about sons and loss. By the way, can I say how funny Worf was?
I love Worf this season. He was great.
It's so funny. Just so Michael Dorn, take a bow. You're terrific. I will make it a threesome.
Just so many classic Worf moments. Like
Classic Worf moments.
when he's holding that Vulcan hostage, and it's like, I have mastered the Klingon technique, or the Kahless technique of, perhaps we should skip to the interrogation. I'm in desperate need of medical attention.
I loved all his quips about how he preferred the Enterprise E.
Perfect.
Because it felt like such a way to like respect fans, but also shut them up about why they're not using the E.
And it was just such a classic Worf moment too. It's like, I don't give a shit about all this nostalgia. I just care about the weapon systems.
Yeah, better phaser arrays, the torpedoes were better. Diana's like, Worf, stop it. This is a big moment. Geordi's went to all this effort to rebuild our ship.
And you mentioned it earlier, but I love the reveal that his sword is actually extremely heavy.
Extremely heavy, yeah. It was such a quick bit, yeah. As heavy as the dark
was like, holy shit, I didn't know this was so heavy. And also the reveal that he's had a phaser in it. Yep. Swords are fun.
I prefer swords. That's very Klingon. That's terrific. Absolutely. My only little critique of that is that he was wearing yellow and not red. But he did. Terry Metalis, again, very good communicator on Twitter. Almost to a fault, was like, yeah, but like he wore yellow in TNG, so we're gonna give him yellow again. Admiral Todman from DS9 was a yellow uniformed admiral.
Yeah, so, Geordi's wearing yellow as a Commodore. It's fine.
Yeah, like it's fine. They gave Beverly Crusher the rank of admiral at the end of the show, and she had Commodore pips.
It's fine.
It annoyed me a bit.
She's head of Starfleet Medical.
She can do what she likes. Yeah.
All of the characters, I think every character gets at least one moment to shine and see, like, yeah, they're back. For Troy is in this show much less. Yeah. Which is unfortunate. But
apparently that was kind of partly also Morena Sirtis's like desire. Like, she lives in London. She didn't really want to have a big, even though she's relevant to the plot, she didn't want to have so much of a time commitment. Because these shows take time to make. Yeah, it's weird. We speak about the Borg reveal like that was the reveal. The Changelings were revealed as well. I remember when I first saw Jack punch that guy, and I was like, what? That looked similar. That looked familiar to me. And then he was like, there's a Changeling on board when he goes to sickbay. And that was like, what? That threw everyone. Because no one really knew. People thought Vadic was the villain and she was going to be a bit generic. There was so much more going on. The Changeling on board the Titan. Who would have thunk it? And like they reference Odo. That was great.
Look, I think in some ways Vadic is still a little bit generic. I will concede that. She's an evil person who wants revenge. I think she's very well performed. I think Amanda Plummer does a great job with that character. But I was happy to see her die before the finale. Let's see that.
Yeah, so was I. I actually thought that was more interesting, killing her off, than having her just sort of sit around with nothing to do for the last couple of episodes except to be a mustache twirler, maybe running around the Titan, I guess. Mm-hmm. I wonder how all the Changelings avoided assimilation.
Well, in rewatching it, I did notice that Vadic was like, don't use the transporter. We're going to take a shuttle to board them. So I guess they just know not to use the transporter. Yeah,
they don't have the DNA and stuff. I guess if you saw any young person not affected by it, you're like, you're looking at the transporter, you're a Changeling. I liked that they said that Beverly created a secret subroutine in the transporter to like trick people if they're Changelings. Mm-hmm. That was quite good.
I don't like Vadic's backstory that she was a program of secret evil Starfleet experiments. It's like, oh, okay.
I didn't find it that much of a stretch because I did think that how they portrayed the Starfleet treatment of Changelings in DS9 was quite poor.
I guess.
They distrusted Changelings the whole time. That was a thing about Odo. Like, you sure you don't want a Starfleet Chief of Security, Captain Sisko? How much do you really trust this guy? You know, that was a big part of it. Then they gave him the infection with Section 31, and Starfleet kind of decided to not give them the cure, so they had to steal it. They were like, Section 31's kind of, we don't condone what they've done, but we're not going to fix it either.
I guess that is the drama of Changelings, is that they're, like, obviously they're people, but also they're, like, the ultimate weapon.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously they give him a Starfleet security in DS9 and ends up to be a member of the Maquis, so, like, stop accusing this person of being a villain when the people you apparently trust are worse. You know, this person done nothing wrong, whereas this person wore a uniform and you trusted him even though he was a blatant traitor.
Yeah.
Like, I think the changeling stuff is really interesting in Star Trek, and I think it still carries through into Picard quite well.
They don't explore it as much as they do in Deep Space Nine, obviously.
Yeah.
Although I do love the scene where Tuvok turns out to be a changeling.
Yes. You know what? I was so happy that we actually got Tuvok back.
It doesn't matter that it's Tuvok, but it was nice to see him.
Yeah, it was nice to see him, and he's the one that promotes Seven to captain. You know, and it was like, apparently Terry Matalas says he wanted Kate Mulgrew and he wanted Harry Kim to be in it as well, and there was just too much. They couldn't afford it because this show was in a cut budget, so they saved a lot of money to build the Enterprise bridge and for the special effects in space. So that's why you have a lot of episodes. But that's what made Star Trek always great. I think it was maybe Mike from RLM that had said it once, that like how they got really smart stories written out of Star Trek was because they had to write smarter, because they didn't have the luxury of interesting vistas and sets. They had to just make sitting in rooms talking interesting for an hour. You know?
And there's a lot of that this season, and it feels very Star Trek.
It feels very Star Trek, you know, and it's terrific.
I think I did get sick of the 10 forward set.
Yes, I did get sick of the 10 forward set as well. I think that is safe to say. Very weird Whoopi Goldberg wasn't in this season.
Yeah, I guess it's because Whoopi Goldberg's a bit of a complicated character. I don't know.
Yeah, but she was in season 2. Ladies on The View say batshit stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's weird that they mention her like she's in the final scene, but you just don't see her.
Yeah, like Guinan's been given as a side eye for an hour now. I wonder if they thought they were going to get her. Like, they said that to do a reverse shot of her, but like obviously you film stuff a wee bit out of sequence, and they thought we'll add her in later, and then they just never did.
Also, maybe I'm just still bitter about how that 10 forward bar is so stupid.
Yeah.
I understand why they do it, but the whole part of that bar being like the reason that the bar on the Enterprise was named 10 forward is so dumb.
Yeah, like it's the reason it's 10 forward in TNG is because it's at the front of the 10th deck.
Yes,
that's the name. However, I think that in Picard season 2, I still disliked it, but I can understand maybe it's like a cheap gimmick because apparently all Guinan does is hawk Starfleet shit. That she would maybe name her bar after the Enterprise
I was fine with
D-bar.
it in the first episode. When they went back to the past and it was still called 10 forward, then I was like, no, this is dumb.
Oh wait, no, the reason it was stupid was because the street was called 10 forward or something, wasn't it?
It's on 10, it's number 10 on Forward Street.
Yeah, that was really stupid. Sorry, I forgot about the street name actually. That was stupid. If that street wasn't called that, then it would be fine. Then for her to go back in time and have it still be called 10 forward was also equally stupid. I think that because what made Guinan, a Earth bartender, decide to open up a bar in a Federation starship called the name of her bar from Earth? It's stupid. It's the reason. Silly. But yeah, I think Whoopi Goldberg probably was intended for this, though no one's mentioned her at all. But it was just the way it was shot and filmed. It was just like she's in the scene. Apparently, we just don't see her. Mm-hmm. And what would it have hurt to have seen Whoopi Goldberg back with the TNG crew? Would that have been bad?
Yeah, I don't know. She was wasted in season 2, much like Q, but Q at least got to show up again in a post-credit scene.
Q is hopefully going to redeem himself. Are we going to see John Delancey back in a Starfleet uniform to mock Jack Crusher?
I would love it.
Yeah,
I don't know what his weird robe was. I mean, Q wears weird things. But
it was a nice outfit actually. I quite liked where he whipped it down so it was less of a robe and it had more of a cloak vibe.
I was back to it. I was going to say that every character has their moment to shine from the original crew. For Riker, it's a lot of the stuff in the first 4 episodes. For Troy, I think my favourite scene of her was after she reveals that it's the Borg. And she's like, I mean, I know he's your son, but regulations call for us to treat him like a super weapon. Yeah. I was like, that was some classic Starfleet stuff. Yeah,
like we need to like lock this down right now. Sorry, I know he's your son, but we have a job to do. I'm Commander Diana Troy, Starfleet Counselor.
Dr. Crusher was in way more of the season than the trailers led me to believe. She was in the full thing, as opposed to the trailers kind of made it seem like she was going to be like on the run and they were going to be chasing her the whole season. The trailers really misled what the season was actually about.
Yeah, I mean, they hid it well, but it was, I mean, listen, I sometimes give misleading trailers shit, but that was a good use of trailers because I had no idea what the season was going to be.
Yeah.
Even when people online were saying it's going to be good, we've seen it, it's very good, I was still like, okay, I'll accept that it's going to be good, but I don't know what it's going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was, wow, terrific.
I know it's kind of silly that they brought Data back for a second time, but they did it right this time, so...
Yeah.
I mean, look, as Red Letter Me 2 pointed out, putting Data and Laura in the same body is a stupid idea, and no good scientist would ever think to do that, but,
yes.
you know, it's fine. It made for good drama.
It made for good drama. We got a wee bit of resolution, we got a Tasha Yar hologram, we got to see Spot the cat.
I like that scene where, because you're like, what's Data planning right now? He's like giving all his memories, and it's like, you're up to something, Data. I know you are.
He's like overwhelming him with love.
Yes.
Yeah. He's like, because it's like effectively, I am now lore, but with all of Data's memories. Is that it?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm just as good as Data now. I might as well be Data because everyone's just like an amalgamation of their memories and thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can argue that, like, oh, he's not really Data, but you can also argue that about Picard. It's like, it's not an argument worth having.
Yeah, it's just, like, we have Data back. We have Data.
Or on Memory Alpha, on the Star Trek wiki, he's technically listed as, like, Soong Android 51, whatever.
Yeah, it's still Data. I liked when he brought back, because I laughed out loud when they asked him to say something in the bar, and he went with there was a woman from Venus, whose body was shaped just like that was terrific, because that's TNG Season 1 deep cut. That's from The Naked Time. But yeah, so I loved I loved just everything. There was in episode 9 where they started to finally resolve the story. I felt like I could see the wheels spinning. Like the first 8 episodes, episode 7 was a bit slow, I guess. But
yeah, like when he goes through the red door and it's a Borg cube, and you're like, oh no, you just haven't got a negative reaction to it.
Yeah. Like, I felt like I could see the wheels spinning when they were trying to resolve the plot instead of just being immersed in it, which I had been for the first over half of the show. I was just drowning in the love of it. Mm-hmm. And then I could see the wheels spin, but I still liked it. I kind of, in the Borg cube, I was a bit like, oh, they're treating the Galaxy like a Tom Cruise Top Gun fighter jet, which I'm not a fan. I like the era of Star Trek where the ships were like capital ships. Yeah, capital ships engaged.
Also, it made me think, like, wow, that Borg cube is gigantic. It's like the size of a planet.
Yeah, like I mean, they just recreated the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
I mean, that's exactly what they done. And
I like the moment where they have to trust Data's gut. That felt like a very like culmination of Data.
Yes. That yeah. Why am I sensing enjoyment? Like a wee bit of happiness.
Yeah.
Borg Queen was Alice Kurd. Nice to see her back voicing, not acting, but voicing.
Yeah, it was
the
like
role.
A puppet or something, I guess.
It was an actual actor. There is a credited actor, but they just dubbed over her with the First Contact Borg Queen.
I see. Covered in makeup anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah, didn't matter anyway, which is fine. I'm fine with that. It looked very H.R. Geiger-y.
It did, yeah. It kind of reminded me of Palpatine on his crane, but
a little bit, but it didn't move around. Yeah,
yeah.
I loved Vox, the voice. That was great. That was all fantastic stuff. I love the Fleet Museum stuff. I love the wee musical cues when Voyager shows up, or the Defiant, the DS9. Mm-hmm. Like the episode was called The Bounty because it's about getting the cloaking device from Kirk's captured Klingon bird of prey called about. This stuff was so smart. It was just so clever. Like
that's the overall theme of the show, is well thought out.
Well thought out, exactly. It was just terrific. What was the episode called? Like 15 seconds or something. When he's in the turbo
17
lift.
seconds.
17 seconds. Yeah. That's episode 4, right?
Yeah.
Like terrific, absolutely terrific. All these episode titles completely relevant. Not like the Vulcan hello.
I think it is the best use of fan service and nostalgia that I've ever seen.
Yes.
Where it's like properly, fully incorporated into the story, as opposed to being like a
trick to get you to watch.
Yeah. And there's some parts where it's glossing over some dumb things, but for the most part, I think it's handled really well.
I loved where they actually went aboard the Enterprise and it just looked like the Enterprise.
It's, the lighting's all proper.
Michelle Barrett's voice, the computer.
Mm-hmm.
That clip of her audio, by the way, was apparently taken from Chain of Command.
Oh,
where
good stuff.
Where he returns to the Enterprise from Captain Hardass. That's
I see. Okay.
Yeah, he's like, he wants them. I would like my ship back, please, Captain. They're like, the ship is now under command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. I'd love Riker was like, I miss that voice, which is quite meta because Michelle Barrett was also the wife of Gene Roddenberry, and she was called the First Lady of Star Trek for years.
Yeah.
She was Loxana Troy. She was obviously the original #1, the voice of the computer all the way through to Enterprise, because there's the TNG episode at the end, obviously, of Enterprise's run. She died in 2010.
I think it's really interesting, and I wonder how this will play out. But from a meta level, the end of this season almost feels like a hard reset on the last 30 years of Star Trek.
Doesn't it?
Where it's like the Enterprise D is back, it never blew up. Their Data's back, he never died, killing Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yeah.
And they're playing cards, they're playing poker.
Yeah, it is a reset on the TNG line of things, because obviously TNG ended and Dominion War and Voyager all happened after that, But yeah, you're entirely correct. It really is a reboot on the TNG's sort of bumpy road, getting from there to here, as it were. I never get fed up of them talking about the NX-01. They done it in Discovery. They done it. Admiral Shelby spoke about the NX-01 here. I'm fine with it, because there's no way you can incorporate Enterprise era into this, because it's before Kirk's time. You need to do some time travel shenanigans.
We see the NX-01. It's at the Fleet Museum. They don't focus on it for some reason, but it's got the refit and it looks fantastic.
Oh, it looks fantastic. Oh, I love the NX refit. I love it.
It makes me wish we could have seen it in an actual show.
Yeah, well, that was apparently the plan for season 5. 5, 6, and 7 would have been set during the Earth-Romulan War.
Because I'd heard that there was a refit. I hadn't actually seen it before, but seeing it in person, it's like, wow, it just makes that ship look right.
Had you never seen the refit before?
No, I'd never seen it before.
Have you since looked up images? Because then
I have.
Yeah, Picard doesn't give you a particularly good look at it.
It makes the ship look complete. Like the original NX-01 is missing something, and that just makes it look correct.
Yeah. And all the NX-01 refit designs, by the way, have been around since 2004, because it was the intended plan for season 5. They were going to go into, because obviously the end of season 4 with These Are the Voyages is all 10 years later, but there's a 6-year gap in there where there's the Romulan War, and that was you would get the secondary hull and stuff, and that was all supposed to be. Star Trek Legacy, my favourite Star Trek video game, it goes into the Romulan War a little bit, though there is no secondary hull on it. Oh, so nice. My criticism of the end of the show is probably just going to be where I thought renaming the Titan was overindulgent.
That was one step over the line.
One step over the line. I saw somebody earlier on being like, I love Picard on Twitter. I loved Picard season 3. It was fantastic. However, I will never forgive them for decommissioning the F for no good reason. And Terry had responded by saying basically, listen, we could have just used the E in that scene, but we thought, let's tip the hat to our Star Trek Online
hero
fans, to the hero ship from Star Trek Online. Let's just honour the game for a second. It wasn't supposed to be a big lore moment that the F is here. It was just supposed to be, let's just honour, instead of making it the E, just make it the F for this little scene. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. I apologise if you felt like you wanted... I apologise if you felt like you wanted more. But we're just trying to honour the Star Trek Online community by making the Enterprise F the Odyssey class. Because I think people probably would have got more annoyed if the Titan had been renamed Enterprise F, because people would have liked to have seen the Odyssey. So, but yeah, I mean, I was fine with the Titan A. The Titan A was fine. It's only called the Titan because it was weird. It was like they had to strip parts from the original Titan to make the Titan A. Because they talk about
they say it's a refit.
Yeah, so they had to say the nacelles are there, because the artist actually popped up concept art of the Titan A and the Titan, because the Titan was a Luna class. You see it in Lower Decks.
Yeah,
the art's been around for years.
The below nacelles.
Yeah, it looks like an Akira class kind of. I loved the Luna class Titan, by the way. I thought it was a fantastic design, and this is the same nacelles from that ship. Apparently, they just to readjust the saucer, and they're having to, because of the Dominion War, they were low on parts. And the Borg incursion and First Contact, so a lot of these stuff are in the Romulan situation. The Romulus explosion, they're just low on ships, so they've had to do a lot to refurbish old ships. Hence, which is why I thought maybe they could have just refurbed the Enterprise D and made that the Federation flagship again. They made the set. Give us Captain 7 on, even if we disagree with her.
I think that would have been a bit much, frankly. I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm happy with the D at the museum.
You're happy with the D at the museum. Federation flag, but I think the Enterprise, even though I love the Titan design, I think it's great. The Enterprise name should be given to a top of the line new starship fresh out the factory.
The Enterprise should be the biggest ship in the fleet.
Yeah, like it should be cutting edge. I mean, I guess in the motion picture in The Wrath of Khan it was a 20-year-old ship, but that's because they hadn't decommissioned it yet. I know newer ships have come along, the Excelsior and stuff, you know? And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a ship being more advanced than the Enterprise. But if you're decommissioning the F, don't give the name to an older ship. Give it to a brand new ship. Because if you accept that the Titan A is a refit model, that ship's been around technically since First Contact.
It's such a minor part of the show, but it was just like, it was like a bit much. It was just a bit much.
Yeah.
If the whole thing was him just going to the Titan to be on 7th, that would have been fine. It doesn't need to be the Enterprise.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the Enterprise. Even though we love that ship so much, the Titan, that Neo-Constitution class, the design.
I like it more as the Titan.
Yeah, I like it more as the Titan. I like it less as the Enterprise. Don't know what I want the Enterprise to be, but not that, though I loved it as the Titan.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the ending was so classy with the music playing. I actually went back to rewatch the credits just because it's got the Enterprise or the TNG theme playing over them, just playing poker. It was classy. I loved it.
So classy. I loved the homage to Undiscovered Country where the Enterprise and the Excelsior fly over the planet with the sunset rimming around the edge of the planet. And then for this, they do the Enterprise D and the Titan flying side by side with the captain's log playing.
Yep.
That was gorgeous, because I love that shot. I love Undiscovered Country as a film so much. Like, I think it's great. And I love the ending with the melancholy Star Trek tone sort of vibrating through space and the captain's log at the end of Kirk. And this with Captain Riker giving a captain's log. I love it. Terrific. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's so nice that we can sit and speak immeasurably positive. Who would have thought, Kyle, you said this to me, that we would be more excited and more happy to talk about Picard Season 3 than we are Mando Season 3?
It's crazy. It's madness.
So mad. Like, oh, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if we haven't made it clear, and I'm sure we have, watch Star Trek Picard Season 3.
I mean, if you're a Star Trek fan.
It's a very deep cut show.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work for newbies to Trek. This is not a good entry point.
Yeah, it's a very big, deep cut. But you know what? Hop on now before we get more of it, maybe not.
Oh god, they talked about this in Ireland, but it really does feel like we're at the edge of a cliff here. We're on it's like that meme of like the bright pretty castle and then the dark evil castle.
Yeah.
We're at the crossroads right now.
But we've been in the dark evil castle for a long time. Why have we chosen to exit it only to walk back in it again?
I don't know, man. Section 31 movie is happening, so it could all go downhill.
It's very depressing, isn't it? Okay.
We gotta have hope. We gotta have faith of the heart.
We gotta have faith of the heart, yeah.